and welcome. I am so glad you're here. My name is Kelsey Derringer, and I'm going to be your teacher here today at CodeJoy. We are an online education company that focuses on teaching robotics, coding, and engineering, all on video conferencing platforms. But as always, I am not here alone. I have with me my director and producer, Matt the Robot. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing, Kelsey?
I'm doing great. What are you up to?
Well, I'm going to be monitoring the chat to make sure all of our questions get answered.
That's right. So there are lots of ways to participate in today's session. So if you are on the Zoom webinar with us, you can participate in the chat. We're going to be asking some questions in the chat and also giving you the ability to code our robots here in our studio. No matter where in the world you are, you can control some robots today if you're with us on Zoom. If you're with us on YouTube, you can certainly, this should be really fun to watch as well. So you can chat with us, you can code with us, and you can watch along with us, and it should be really fun either way. So today we are going to explore a haunted house. And to do that, we have my friend Elby there on the scene. Hey, Elby, tell us about the haunted house. Oh, wow. He says it's really busy. There's lots of people there and they're having a really fun time. This is great. I'm so excited. All right. Are you ready to go in the haunted house, Elby? No, you're not ready to go in. Well, that's a real bummer, man, because we're here with Empire Maker Faire and we told them we'd go in the haunted house. So what's up? What's going on, bud? What? I can't hear you. Oh, right. I see. He says he's feeling a little nervous. He doesn't really like to be scared. So he's kind of scared because he doesn't know what's going to be in there. And I'll tell you, I know how that feels. I'll tell you what, why don't we take a look at some of the things that are going to be in the haunted house so that we can understand how they work? Do you want to do that? Okay, great. That's awesome. Well, let me come get you, Elby, and then we will take a look at our haunted house. All right, here I come. All right, there we go, little buddy. All right, so are you ready to take a look at some of the things in that haunted house? Awesome. So we're going to see 3 different things in our haunted house today. Let's take a look. We are going to look at a ghost. Ooh. We're also going to take a look at a spider. Very cool. And we're going to take a look at a very creepy portrait. Oh my goodness. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at each of those pieces. We're going to bring them over here. We're going to understand how they work. And then you are going to get a chance to code and control them. All right. Let me go grab the ghost. Here I go. Here's our haunted house. All right. So this little feature right here, this here haunted house, has some very cool pieces and parts to it. Let's take a look at it. All right. We have got this one big cardboard piece here. And behind that cardboard piece, well, that's where the ghost is hiding. And to trigger it, we get close to this distance sensor over here. So watch what happens when I get close to the distance sensor. The ghost pops out, right? So that is what it looks like when it works. But I want to take a look at what the code that's controlling this robot looks like. So let's take a look at that code. Matt is going to send you that code in the Zoom chat. All right. So Matt just sent that to you in the Zoom chat. And you, if you're with us here on Zoom, you can click on that and open it. You should probably open it in a Chrome browser. It works best if you are able to open that on a laptop or a Chromebook. And then you might also want to, when you open that, figure out how to resize your windows so that you can see us here on Zoom and you can see that code there on your screen on Chrome as well. So when you open up that code, it's probably going to look something like this. It'll look like that. If you've used MakeCode before, you probably recognize this because it's MakeCode if you've programmed with a microbit or something like that. To go in and edit this code, you can click on the button that says Edit. It's in the top right-hand corner there. And when you do, now your screen's going to look something like this, right? So I'm going to minimize this little microbit over here so that we can see our code better. And then let's take a look at it. Let's figure out how this distance sensor is controlling our servo motor. All right, now you might see a word on here. You might see the word hummingbird a lot. And if you've ever programmed with MakeCode before, you might not have seen that word before. So we are using a microbit to control all of our robots like this, but we're also using a Hummingbird board. Now this snaps right onto your microbit, and it makes it really easy to connect lots of LEDs and motors and sensors. And we really like it for making with because it just makes it super easy to program. Make sure if you guys have any questions as we're going, you type those in the chat so that we know that you're having some issues and we can help you out. So when you see that word hummingbird in the code, you can know that the microbit is talking to the hummingbird, and the hummingbird is going to control some LEDs and motors and sensors. So let's take a look at that code again. So here's our code, and if we read it, we can kind of read it like a sentence. It says, if the Hummingbird distance sensor measures less than 30, and that's going to be in centimeters, then the position servo is going to move and stay there for a second. Otherwise, if it's not true that we're less than 30 centimeters away from the distance sensor, the position servo is going to be at this position. So let's take a look and see what that means in the context of our robot. Okay. So I'm going to turn it around so you can kind of see what's happening on the back of our robot here. Great. Okay, so here's our robot, and if we can see the code and the robot side to side, you'll be able to tell what's going on here. So here's our distance sensor right there, and there's our motor. So when I trigger the distance sensor, you can see there's the motor, there's a popsicle stick and a ghost on it. And when I trigger the distance sensor, that moves the motor. Now let's learn what that number 90 and that number 0 mean. That is how you control a position servo. You control a position servo, it can go from 0 all the way to 180 degrees. So you can see that this code off to the side here, over there, excuse me, is controlling where that motor is going to. So when the distance sensor is triggered, the motor will move to 90 degrees and it'll stay there for 1,000 milliseconds, which is a second. Otherwise, when the distance sensor is not triggered, if it's more than 30 centimeters away, it just stays here at 0, which is how it kind of hides up in the rafters there. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to change the angles of your position servo motor. So change that 90, change that 0. Decide how you want the ghost to move. Do you want it to swing down and then stay there? Do you want it to swing by and swing back the other way? What is creepier to you? And when you're done, when you've changed that 90 and that 0 to something else, share your code with us. Here's how to share your code. If you're working, take a pause right now. Come find me on Zoom because I want to show you how to share your code in MakeCode. In MakeCode, to share, you go to the top and you hit this button that says share. It's like 3 dots with 2 lines connecting it. You click that. You're going to give your code a name like ghost because this is controlling the ghost, and then you'll publish it. It gives you a unique URL or a website, and you're just going to copy and paste that back into the Zoom chat. So if you're here with us on Zoom, you can copy and paste code back into the chat there. And again, what we want you to change in the code that we sent you here, we want you to change the angle of that motor. Let's take one more look at it while you guys finish coding. All right, here's our distance sensor. There's our motor. And when I trigger the distance sensor, it moves. Pretty cool. All right. Hey, Matt, did we get any code coming in on Zoom?
Yeah, it looks like we have one code from Lily. I'm going to go ahead and open that up and then download it onto the robot.
All right, Lily, I have just plugged in our robot so that we can download your code onto it. Very cool. I'm excited to see what it looks like. But we won't see what it looks like until we go back into the haunted house. Looks like we're getting a bunch of code coming in now, Matt. Do you want to try one more?
Sure, I think we could probably do one more on here. It looks like Jayton, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. We're going to go ahead and put your code onto this ghost as well.
Exciting. All right. Jatin, whoever you are out there, your code is going on our robot right now. So exciting. Can't wait to see what it looks like. Ooh, doing some fancy stuff. We'll see how it looks when we get into our haunted house. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start to put this robot back in. We got it downloaded. Great. I'll unplug it. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in our haunted house. And Jayton, keep a lookout, because when we go through the haunted house, you're going to see your code on the ghost. All right. And then while I'm putting it back over there, if you're participating with us on chat, I have a question for you. If you want to answer it in the chat, have you ever been to a haunted house? And if you did you like it? Let us know. I'm going to go get our next robot. Check out this next robot. Ooh, spooky.
And we do have a comment from Jayton. It looks like he has been, or she, I'm sorry, they have been to a haunted house, and they got so scared that they didn't go through it completely.
Oh my gosh, me too. I am usually so scared of haunted houses, but I do really like knowing how things work. So I really like exploring this and learning how it's working. I hope that you are enjoying it too. Now I'm going to move to the side a little bit so that you can see this, because I'm wearing black today. See what's happening? When this distance sensor is triggered, we've got a spider that goes up and down from a pulley system back here. And I'm going to hold this one in my hand so you can see how it works. So you can see that on this robot, the distance sensor is still just a distance sensor, or the robot is still just a distance sensor plus a position servo motor. And this time it's going all the way to 180. When the spider is up, that's at 0%. And then when I trigger the distance sensor by putting something like my table close to it, it turns, and now the wheel spins to 180 degrees and the spider goes down. So we've got a winch mechanism here. So you can use the same sort of code and the same sort of robot, but do totally different things with it. So let's go back to our code and let's take a look at it. I'm going to put this face down here so that it can roll a little bit. All right, so we're going to take a look at this code now. I'm going to just go back to our sample code that we were working on. We don't need to send you anything new because you can control this robot with the same code that you had before. So now the thing that we want to pay attention to, now you know how those angles work. Now we want to pay attention to that block that says pause. All right. So keep your distance sensor and the number 30, keep that the same. In this robot, now the code that it's running, when the distance sensor is triggered, that is making the spider go to 180 degrees so that it goes all the way down. And you can see that noted on here. You can see that the spider up, it's upside down, but the spider up is at 0 and spider down is at 180 degrees there. All right. And so when we're here, what we want you to think about now is when that spider falls on you, do you want it to be on you for a second? Do you want it to be on you for less than a second or more than a second? How long do you want that spider to be down for? You can control that with the blue pause block in this code. So if you want it to be on you, the spider's going to jump down on you when you're coming through the haunted house. Oh, so scary. Do you want it to be on you for a whole second? Do you want it to be on you for less time? You could do 500 milliseconds instead of 1,000, so that would be shorter. You could have it be down for 5 whole seconds. You can, and you can even type things in here. You could type in 750 milliseconds if you want to get really fancy. Whatever you want that to be. And when you've changed that pause block to be what you think you want it to be, go ahead and share your code back with us. You can share your code back with us in the chat on Zoom. So let me show you how to share one more time. And then I'm going to check in with you, Matt. So here's how to share. Go up and hit that share button. Give it a name like Spider, because that's what we're doing, Spider. Publish it, and then copy and paste that link over into our chat section there. All right, Matt, how are things going? Do we have any questions coming in?
Well, we do have one question. It looks like we've got some viewers that are wondering what shield we're using to control the haunted house.
That's a great question. Let me show you. The thing that we're using to control all of our robots, we're using a microbit like this. You might be familiar with those. They actually just came out with a brand new version of microbit, which has a speaker and a microphone built in this week. So that's really cool. But then the shield that we're using, that's another word for like a breakout board shield. The microbit snaps into this. This is a Hummingbird board, and you can see that right here as well. The Hummingbird board just makes it really easy to plug in 3 single color LEDs, 2 tricolor LEDs, 4 motors, and those can be position servos or rotation servos, and they're the bigger ones, like this size here, plus 3 sensors. All we have plugged in is 1 position servo and 1 distance sensor. You can see the distance sensor here, but there's the possibility to plug in lots of them with that same board. All right, do we have any code coming in there, Matt?
Oh, it looks like we've got one from Jasper that I'd love to take a look at.
All right, Jasper, I'm going to plug in this robot right here so that we are going to load your code on this spooky spider. Ooh, fancy. Do you want to change that first servo, Matt, to 1? There we go. All right. So Jasper, we're going to load your code onto this robot, and we're going to see how it works. While Matt is loading that on there, we might even be able to take a look at this code as we're trying it out to see what Jasper sent us. Oh, there's lots of great codes coming in on Zoom. This is great, you guys. I'm so glad you guys are coding with us. This is really cool. All right, so let's take a look at the code that Jasper wrote, just really quick before we put this robot back. Where did my mouse go? There it is. Oh, will you help me out, Matt?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
No problem.
I will come here. Okay, so will you minimize the microbit simulator so we can see the code a little bit bigger? Thank you. All right, so this code that Jasper built here, this code, he's got Hummingbird position servo 1. Now, he'd originally changed it to position servo 4, but if you look on our robot here, I'm going to zoom way in, you'll see that we only have a motor plugged in, and I'll zoom even further in than that. We only have a motor plugged in port 1 here. We don't have one plugged in all the way in port 4. So we changed your code so that it would be controlling the motor in port 1, Jasper. That way it would work. So the code that we're looking at here is position servo 1 is going to go down to 180 degrees. And instead of pausing for 1,000 milliseconds, Jasper made it so it's only pausing for 111 milliseconds. So it's going to be quick. And we'll see it in action in our haunted house. All right. I am going to go put this back in the haunted house and grab our next haunted robot, our next scary, spooky robot. But before I do, if you are having a good time today, and I hope that we are, we're getting lots of great participation, I wanted to remind everybody that you can find out more about what we do here at CodeJoy at our website, codejoyeducation.com. We do lots of classes like Robot Haunted House and Robot Romeo and Robot Memories and Robot Jokes, all kinds of fun classes. And we can do these for you and your school or your organization or your pod of learners. So definitely check us out on our website to learn more about what we do. And in honor of the spider we just coded, I have a question for you guys to chat about while I grab our other robot, which is, what do you think is the scariest number of legs that something can have? 0? 26? 8? I don't know. That's up to you. Great. All right. Here is our final spooky, scary, haunted house thing. But before we look at it, what are people saying out there, Matt? What's the spookiest number of legs something can have?
Oh, we've got a few different opinions on that. Jayton believes that 13 is the scariest number of legs. I think that's a great number for scary, as far as scary numbers go. And then the Empire State Maker Faire believes that 5 is the scariest number of legs.
Those are both a very creepy number of legs for things to have. I want to check in on you, LB, because we want to know how you're feeling about this whole thing. Are you enjoying figuring out how these things work? Okay, good, great. Okay, I feel like this is maybe helping, like understanding how things works makes them a little less scary. Let's take a look at our final scary robot today. I'll zoom out a little bit. So this is our creepy portrait. Ooh, so creepy, so creepy. So you'll see when the distance sensor is triggered, and sometimes my wall can trigger it a little bit, so I'll make sure that that's lined up. When it's not triggered, the regular sort of Mona Lisa head is up. However, when I trigger it, it switches back and forth between this very spooky skeleton and do you guys know who that person is right there with the snakes in her hair? If you do, type it in the chat. I bet somebody out there knows who she is. And let me take off the wall here so that we can look inside and see how this works. Hey, Jasper got it. It's Medusa. Nice job, Jasper.
So did Claire.
Hey, nice job, Claire. Snaps for Claire and Jasper. Nice work. All right, so this is how this works in the background here. We've got, I just have the wall magnetized on the front here, but when we trip the distance sensor, it's just turning this dial. And if we flip it over and look at it from the back, you can see, hey, look at there. This is looking familiar. It's a hummingbird, a distance sensor, and a motor. Same thing as all of the other projects. But we are going to have to add something to our project. I want to note that here on this one, 0 degrees is when the normal head is up. That's 0 degrees. 90 degrees is when it goes to the skeleton, and 180 degrees is Medusa's head there. So let's take a look at that in terms of coding and figure out what you can code about this robot. We'll take a look. We'll go back to that sample code that we've been working on this whole time here, and we'll check in with that and figure out what you might need to add. So the code that this is running right now is, it starts at 0, but then it goes to, when the distance sensor is triggered, it goes to 90, it stays there for a second, and then it's got another, it's got a sequence of motors and motor movements here. So to add motors moving over and over again and to make it move to different positions, this position servo 1 that's plugged into port 1, it goes to 90 degrees, it waits for a second, and then it goes to 180 degrees, and then it waits for a second. Let's see that in action. So here's my distance sensor. It waits for a second, it waits for a second, and then it goes back to the beginning. So this is the code that this robot is running right now. But I want you guys to change it, make it do more stuff. To add more motor blocks in our sequence of events there, here's what you should do. You can right-click with your finger, or if you're on a Mac, you can click with 2 fingers. You can right-click, and then you get this option to duplicate a block. So you can duplicate a block, and every time you have a motor movement block, you have to follow it with a pause block. Make sure you follow that pattern so that it will go motor, pause, motor, pause, motor, pause, motor, pause. And you can make it move to any of the angles you want it to, although the heads only work at 0, 90, and 180 degrees. That's why we wrote that on our handy dandy protractor here. But you can make it switch back and forth between whatever heads you want and make those heads stay on there for however long you want, whatever you think will be the creepiest. All right, so add your motor movements on there, whatever you think will be super creepy. Remember, 0 is normal head, 90 is the skeleton, 180 is Medusa. So add whatever code you want, and then let's share it. Let me review with you one more time how to share your code when you have it how you think you want it. We'll go up and we'll hit that share button, the 3 dots with the 2 lines. Share. You'll title it portrait or picture or whatever. Give it a title so we know what it is. Publish it, copy it, and then paste it back in the chat. And so we'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that while you are coding. I want to check in with LB here really quick. LB, how you feeling? Are you feeling a little bit better about this whole haunted house situation? Yeah, me too. You know, I'll let Matt find some of the code that people are working on, and I will go ahead and plug in our robot so you can find one and download it, Matt, whenever you're ready. But
I think I've got one.
You got one? Whose are you going to use? Oops.
Well, Jayton's is in right now, so we're going to go ahead and use Jayton's.
Cool. All right, Jayton. I am very excited to see what you came up with. We'll go ahead and download some code on here. Ooh, very cool. Oh, I'm excited to see what this looks like, Jayton. This is going to be great. This is going to be so great. I see Jasper's bringing some in too. After we are done with our class today, if we have some extra time, we're going to hang out until the end of our session and we can take some questions. And if there was anyone who had some code that they wanted to try but didn't get a chance to, let us know. All right. Are we downloaded, Matt?
Yes, we are.
All right. Let me put this spooky, spooky wall back on. All right. Make sure I'm not triggering it. Cool. And I will go put this back in our haunted house. And while I do that, I have a question for you to answer in the chat, which is, if you could add a 4th head to our creepy portrait here, what would be the other head you would do? So we had a normal one, a skeleton, and Medusa. What other head would you add to this creepy, creepy portrait? All right, I'm going to go put it back. Okay. All right, I'm excited to check in on our chat and see what people said. Did anybody have any answers for what they think? Ooh, a zombie, a werewolf, a makey. That sounds fun. I love playing with makeys. Frankenstein's monster. That sounds really cool too. Those sound really cool, you guys. All right, so LB. Where'd he go? Oh my gosh. Are you ready to go in? That's great. I'm so glad that you're ready to go into the ride. All right, LB, head on into the haunted house, man. Okay. Here we go. Ooh. Oh, you don't want to come help for anything else? He's not ready to come out of the haunted house. He's ready to go right back in, you guys. That's awesome. Great coding, everybody. Just let's give ourselves a round of applause. Nice work, nice work. And it turns out after you understand something, it's a lot less scary. I saw in the chat, someone said, I got scared by the things that we didn't code, but the stuff we coded wasn't scary anymore, which is great because when you understand things, they're less scary. So thank you guys all so much for joining us today. I had a blast learning about the creepiest number of legs and having some great ideas for what else to put in that creepy portrait and hearing about how you guys have gone to haunted houses in the past. Plus, we got to code real robots. And I'd love to hear if anybody wanted to type the city or the state that they're in. I won't say your name, but it would be great to know where everyone was coding from so that we can hear how far away people were when they controlled our haunted house robots. So thank you guys all so much for joining us today. As I said, we have been CodeJoy. So if you want to learn more about us, you can check us out on our website. You can find all of our student classes. We're doing Robot Haunted House a couple more times this month. Once for Family Maker Camp at the last week in October. We're also doing it for streamable learning. And we're doing a public class just as CodeJoy as well. So check out our website. If you want to bring a friend to any of those classes, they are all free to join. So it would be great to have y'all back in class and to bring a friend, or 'tis the season, it's the spooky month. If you want us to do this class for your 4th grade classroom or your 8th grade classroom or your high school CS classroom or your after school program, we can do that too. And it was really awesome to have you guys with us today to learn some coding. I'd love to know where people were coming in from. Matt, can you see where people were coming in from?
Yeah, it looks like we've got some folks coming in from New Jersey and from San Jose.
Wow, very cool. Well, we are located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So how cool is that, that from New Jersey, San Jose, and other people, other places, that you guys were able to code our robot haunted house today. Very cool. Looks like we might have a couple other questions coming in from the chat. And if you have any questions for us about how we do, who we are, how things work, please feel free to ask. We have about 10 more minutes that we can spend here on the call just for questions and answers about our haunted house or our work. What question do we have coming in, Matt?
Well, it looks like Jasper was wondering if we teach how to make the cardboard haunted house.
Oh, that's a really good question, Jasper. We do like to teach classes to teach not only coding, but also making with coding. We do coding and robotics and engineering. And so if your school or your people would like to learn how to design and make a robot haunted house like ours, we would love to teach you that. Just be sure to contact us. You can find our contact information here on our website, and we can let you know how we do what we do, and we can teach a class that gets you to make your very own robot haunted house as well. Oh, and somebody else is coming in from Rochester, New York, which is great, which is usually where Maker Faire was. There was Rochester Maker Faire that we used to go to, and now it's all online, and there's a bunch of Maker Fairs. So shout out to Rochester Maker Faire, my OG Maker Faire. I'm glad you guys have conglomerated, and we can share this with lots of different people. It looks like we have one more question coming in from the chat. What do we got, Matt?
That's right. Jayden was wondering, what is the coolest thing you guys have made? And I think, for us, that's a great question. But I'm also curious about the folks that are out there watching. If you want to tell us the coolest thing that you made, we'd be very interested in learning that.
Yeah. So we'll tell you the coolest thing we've made, but we want to hear about you too. So right back at you, Jasper and Jayden. What's the coolest thing you've made? I want to know it. Matt, oh man, what's the coolest thing you've ever made?
I got to be honest, I'm very proud of this haunted house. This is really fun. I know it's the newest thing I made, and sometimes, or we've made, and sometimes that makes it the coolest.
That's true. Sometimes the most recent thing is always the most fun thing. Like, what's my favorite book? The last one I read. That's always true. This haunted house is probably one of the coolest things I've made. I'm really glad that we get to debut it at Empire Maker Faire. But there's another really cool project that I did. I was teaching teachers how to do coding in robotics and making. And so I was traveling around the country and I was doing this project for a little while called Robot Parade. And each group of teachers, most of whom had never coded or done any robotics before, they came in totally green. And then by the end of the day, they would have made a parade float out of like a cereal box. And they would have coded it, and we always picked a theme. So the theme of peace, or I remember we did one for the the Rose Parade at the beginning of the year for what we hoped for the year. Fun looking back on what we hoped for the year in January and how that's really changed in 2020. But it's a really fun project, like just, you know, using found recycled materials to make parade floats. That one's really, really fun. I didn't invent that project, but I really liked teaching it and seeing what teachers would make when they did it. So do you guys have any more questions for us about how we made things or how we designed this haunted house? Any other things about that or any questions about CodeJoy? Because we are here. We've just got a couple more minutes before we need to take off, but we're here for you guys' questions or for your answers about the coolest things you guys have made. This is great.
Well, since we've got a little bit of time, how about one more trip through the haunted house? How does that sound?
I love that idea. I love that idea. We had one question come in. We'll answer this one, and then we'll maybe take one last little trip through our haunted house in case you guys want to see everything one more time. What's our question there, Matt?
Have you added microcontrollers to costumes and programmed them?
You know, I haven't, but I know that Matt has. Do you want to talk about your costume last year?
Sure. Last year I was the Wizard of Oz, but I was just the wizard's head. So I made a miniature Emerald City set. And then I had some microcontrollers so that I had flashing lights and some sound effects for my voice so that I sounded like the Wizard of Oz.
That was really, really cool. So his head was the floating green head. And then he had this little miniature like Dorothy and the lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and everybody right across the front. So his head looked giant and green because he had green light shining on it. It was really funny. It was really fun to see out. And somebody asked if you used a voice changer. Did you use a voice changer too?
Yeah, I had a voice changer.
Cool. That's great. That's great. All right. So are we set up to go back through the haunted house one more time?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, so we're gonna go through our haunted house one more time just to show it off so that you can see it, maybe notice some things you didn't notice before. But as we're going through, if you guys have questions or comments, things you like, oh, I didn't see that last time, oh, I love that little detail, or questions about what you see there, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll answer them after this last run through. All right, let's do it. Ooh. Can you guys see the sensors? How was that trip through, Elby? You want to go again? Oh, you do want to go again. All right. Wonderful. We had one question come in. Let me zoom in on it a little bit. We're zoomed pretty far out. Oh, they wondered what the gravestone said. It said recycled 2020 because we use a lot of cardboard. So we thought that'd be cute. Recycled 2020. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We had a total blast learning and chatting with you guys, hearing your ideas and seeing your code in action. I want to make sure that if you want to get any more information about CodeJoy and what we do, you know where to find us, you know how to contact us. We are at CodeJoyEducation.com. You can find lots of things there. So thank you so much, everybody. And a huge thank you and shout out to Empire Maker Faire for having us this year. This was a total blast. Thanks for letting us debut our robot haunted house with you guys. Thanks so much.